I'm Kier.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Jay from Gallifrey Public Radio,
a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the one you're listening to right now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3,
2,
1.
This is the official GonnaGeek.com show. Here we're a bunch of geeks talking about geeky things. Each week we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven.
But what if I'm in the mood for a T-Swift story?
Chris.
I've heard the X is going to give it to you.
And SP.
That's how we roll on Gonna Geek on Monday night. We get crazy!
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Welcome to an all-new episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. This is episode 233. I am Steven John Drew, and with me, of course, is the full crew, which includes Chris Farrell.
Hey, you guys. What's up?
We also have, of course, the Drone Master General, Stargate Pioneer.
I'm sitting here in my podcast studio surrounded by my closest friends.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense because nobody is physically in the room with you. So, yes.
I see what you did there.
Yes.
I got friends. I'm surrounded by them.
By the way, audio listener, I believe he actually has his drones around him, which just shows what a lonely, lonely man he is.
I'm not lonely because I have a fleet of quadcopters just being my friends.
Wow, quadcopters. We're bringing out the Q word now. Wow, okay. Well, anyways, we are here with another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. And like we said at the top of the show, we talk about geeky things. And also, guess what? We like to talk about cell phones now and then. And we got someone on the show who got themselves a brand new cell phone this week. Isn't that right, Chris?
SP, you got a new phone?
Yeah, he got an all-new iPhone 3.5.
Wow.
No. It's the new iPhone drone.
Oh, okay.
The iDrone.
No, yeah. Seriously though, Chris, you got yourself a brand new phone this week, didn't you?
That's right, Steven. You and me were hashtag or hash brown pixel buddies.
Are we really? Are we hashtag pixel buddies?
Pixel buddies.
Oh, you didn't go with the XL? What's wrong with you?
The XL.
He did go with the XL, but we both own Pixels. Yeah, you know what, Chris? Actually, hold on. Before you actually talk briefly,
it says it's time for the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Before you talk about it, though, we should bark up that tree a little bit about the Pixel buddies.
I have a phone and so do you. Look at that, it's a Pixel 2. That makes us Pixel buddies for life.
Oh, God.
Don't be jelly, SP. Don't be jelly.
I'm not jelly because I've got my nice iPhone 8 Plus.
Insight into that. Over the past week, Chris did get himself a brand new Pixel, and during our chat, he said we needed a jingle for it, so I made it happen. He had no idea that was coming, which, by the way, just, full legal disclaimer here.
Some of the music heard was by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com.
Yeah, it's the only audio that's used in this that's by Kevin MacLeod. So every time I play it, I have to follow it up with the Kevin MacLeod bump. So
you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at least once per show. But yes, we are Pixel buddies now because Chris did get himself the Pixel 2 XL. How exciting is that?
It's pretty great. Naki's also our Pixel buddy. She's got a regular Pixel 2, just like you, Steven.
Yes, we like to be Pixel buddies. We're all a Pixel buddy network. That's what it is. It's going to be an application requirement to join the Gonna Geek network.
Well, I'll see you guys later then.
If you're a Pixel buddy, you get like preferential treatment is what it comes down to.
Absolutely. So, by the way, special shout out to Emily Prokop from the Story Behind podcast for making that awesome bump. We're going to use that all the time now because we are Pixel buddies. But what's been your first couple of days experience with the Pixel 2 that you have had? And let's talk briefly about that color before we get into the news. What's going on with it?
What color? You mean that I got the basic black Pixel?
No, the color problem on the screen that everybody
the blue
claims to be a problem.
It's a problem, but it's not a terrible one. It's noticeable. I can't really make it show up well on camera, I don't think. Sorry, guys. I thought I'd try it, but you're going to have it in any kind of OLED phone. Is it more noticeable than in the regular Pixel 2? Yes, because Samsung makes better OLED displays than LG does. Was it vastly overblown? Perhaps, but the thing to consider is supposedly the manufacturing process has improved a bit since the October run, and this is a fairly newer run of the phone. So while there is blue shift, it's not overly noticeable, and it really doesn't make me be like, oh, I hate this phone, I'm going to send it back to Google, because if I really wanted to, I could. There's no reason not to. What I didn't realize is how much my battery was sucking on my old phone without realizing it. When, like, I drove up to visit my parents this weekend, and it's about 3 hours round trip, and I streamed music the whole time over my Bluetooth radio in the car. And by the time I got home, I was down to like 90% battery that I dropped overall. I had 90% of my battery, including dicking around the internet a little bit while I was up there and stuff like that. So it really wasn't terrible. And I was like, so this is what it's like to have a battery that doesn't just be like, oh, you're using music, let me crater and take away 20% of your battery. It was nice.
Yeah, and that is something, though, that I noticed when I got my phone, too. Brand new battery makes a difference as well. But also the fact that you've got the XL. I heard the battery's pretty good on that. So awesome, Chris. I'm glad to hear you're quite liking it. The color shift problem isn't as big of a deal as you thought. And I want to say this, that offline, you and I have been talking a little bit about it. And you found a feature that I didn't realize had, which was the Music ID service of the Pixel, which I didn't even realize.
Yes, it's something they've built into the ambient display, which is if you've got your Pixel sitting on your phone and there's music playing, somewhere between 0 seconds to a minute, because it refreshes every minute, it'll hear the music that's playing and then display it on the bottom of your ambient display or in the tool tray or system tray. I don't know what the actual term is for the little drop-down menu at the top. It'll display it in there as well, which is kind of cool. I was listening to the satellite radio in my car when I was driving to work, and I grabbed my phone as I was getting out of the car and had the track information on the bottom. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Well, I haven't had a chance to use it too much yet, but from what I've read, it's pretty good, and I can't believe that I missed that. But in any case, welcome to the club, and I am glad that we are officially...
I have a phone and so do you. Look at that, it's a Pixel 2. That makes us Pixel Buddies for life.
SP's so jelly right now, he can't even be on screen.
He is, and he didn't even hear, by the way, the point that I said that it was going to be a requirement for new applications. But you know what? Some of us, when we get old, we just don't hear all the fine details. So let's go ahead and roll into the news. Here we go. While we're talking about phones, let's go ahead and continue on that trend, why don't we? Because it's not an episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show if we don't talk about Apple in some form. That's right. Today, I'm going to be the one to talk about Apple. What? I know, it's crazy. It's confusing, and it's definitely not revolutionary because the iPhone X or the 10, however you want to refer to it, guess what? The sales are still not doing so hot. I don't know if you knew this or not, but the sales of the iPhone 10 have not been up to snuff. That's just putting it lightly. It's been a big poo-poo as far as what they expected versus what's been happening. And we were talking about this earlier in this year where the iPhone X, the rumor is they're going to be canceling it, but it's looking like maybe they might give it one last go and try to kickstart it a little bit, give it a little bit more of a push by introducing a brand new color variant to the iPhone X. This is the latest rumor. There's not a lot of details on it, not sure what color, but apparently this is looking to, quote, restore sales, end quote, of the device. Now, I don't know. That's, I guess, Apple's thing. They seem to do pretty well with certain colors, and they like to do them. And then some users are like, yeah, that looks pretty good, I'm going to do that. So I'm not surprised to see this because the iPhone 10, they sunk a lot of money into developing it. And I'm not surprised that they might try to give it one last push. SP, as the resident Apple user who has chosen to come back after taking your back medication, what exactly do you think about this?
First of all, I left because you said the network was going to transition to a Pixel-only network. Since I do not own a Pixel, I own an iPhone 8 Plus, I had to leave per your instructions. It wasn't me, it was you.
He said new applicants.
Oh. Okay. So let's continue on this thread here because I laid the groundwork for it already. I own an iPhone 8 Plus. I believe Dave over at the Digital Soup also owns an iPhone 8 Plus. There's a lot of us out there that own iPhone 8 Pluses. Why? Because we don't want to spend $1,500 on an iPhone X when we can get most, if not all, the capabilities that we need in the iPhone 8 Plus. There's no reason that we should be upgrading. And I've heard that you can still get an iPhone 7, and that's a legitimate way to go too. These phones are now too expensive. They're just too expensive. I know we keep talking about that, right? But iPhones, the high-end ones, are the X's, the real high-end ones. It's just too much. Your average consumer is not going to pay that when they can get the iPhone 8 Plus for the same amount. Now, they might have driven more sales to the iPhone X if they didn't have the iPhone 8 Plus, but they would have driven a lot of those customers away if they didn't want to pay the high price to a Pixel 2 XL or a Note whatever, or a S8 Plus. I mean, they're in a tough spot where it's just too expensive. And that's why I don't think a color is going to change it. It's just too expensive.
Yeah, I have to say that they've put a lot of time and money into making these new features. And this is something that I'm not surprised to see them do the push from the perspective that usually they introduce a new feature and a lot of people adopt it. And so then they get the data they need right away to, look at the end game. But if the iPhone X, the sales haven't been where they want. So, things like Face ID, you have to question, do they have the data that they've been looking for on whether it's a success or whether it's something that the public's going to want? Because when your price tag of the general phone, the only phone using Face ID, is so expensive, how are you supposed to say, oh yeah, it's not really successful when it's just the price deterring people away?
And then you just said it, the Face ID thing, right? So take a look at the public backlash right now in the past week on Facebook. Now extrapolate that to something that not only gets all your other personal data, but now your face too. Now I realize we all have pictures of us online, that sort of thing, but none of them are being used, well, for the most part, to unlock stuff.
Says the guy who's literally doing a video show right now publicly.
Right. And yes, I get that, but we're not using our faces on this podcast to unlock our phones.
We unlock achievements with them. So if you can zoom in on my face right here, you get an Xbox achievement.
Ding! That was my Xbox achievement sound.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't have an Xbox, though.
Steven, you're right, though. Who gives a crap about changing the color? Do you really think adding a new exclusive color is going to sell phones? Absolutely not, because you know what happens with most phones? People do this. They put them in a case. So all you can see of the phone is a little bit of paint around the camera bump, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Who cares if you've got the super ultraviolet blue iPhone? No one's going to be able to really tell. Okay, and
the Apple
Apple
symbol.
logo. I forgot about that.
Thanks.
Maybe
I
the Apple,
have a fingerprint sensor myself, but
maybe the Apple will be the colored part.
well, a color is not the way to sell phones if they're not moving. It's the same thing with anything. You don't sell more cars if people aren't buying your car by putting out the super special, super ultraviolet green that's neon fluorescent or some junk like that. That's not what's going to do it. There's a problem.
Dodge did that with the neon and with the Chargers and with the Challengers. Oh, wait, those cars. Okay.
Yeah, I rest my case. So iPhone 10, I think you could say might underperform a little bit, but it's a stepping stone. They have plans for the future. You've already seen people are starting to copy the things they did. The thing I don't understand is all these Android developers that are putting notches on their phones for no perceivable reason now, just because Apple did it. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah.
It's a step forward. Yes, maybe they didn't get the sales they wanted, but they'll get them with whatever the Gen 2 version of the iPhone 10 is, be it the iPhone 10s or the iPhone 11. God knows what they'll call it, but it's just a bridge to the next step for them. Maybe they're going to have to look into putting a fingerprint sensor back on and coupling with Face ID if that's really a problem for some folks. I will say the whole headphone thing, now that I'm living in a dongle world and don't have a headphone jack, it's not quite as annoying as I thought it would be. It's still annoying, but
it is annoying to me, and it's annoying to me because I have an older car and it doesn't have Bluetooth connectivity.
That's a problem then.
Yeah, that's a problem. And also, I'm still living with my iPod Classic. So I have a variety of headphones that I need to bring around too. I need to bring around Bluetooth headphones for the Bluetooth devices, and then corded headphones for the iPod Classic.
Yeah, definitely. When you get into a dongle type world, you want to get yourself some Bluetooth adapters, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation that you're like, this would be perfect for them right now. And I would just recommend people do that. But we'll see what happens here. Hopefully this is just a whole bunch of BS and we don't end up actually having this happen, and the iPhone X just goes away. Another person that we want to see go away is this guy, right, SP?
Yeah.
By the way, clarification. That's a segue into the news. It's not SP that we want to see go away.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm glad you clarified that.
Continue.
We've talked about Mad Mike Hughes before, and for those that don't remember, he's the flat earther that built his own rocket to launch for flat earther awareness and eventually to check for himself to see if the earth is flat or not. So there's a couple of articles online about this. Chris actually forwarded one this morning that was on IFL Science. I went to space.com and checked out their article as well, and that was written by Jenna Brenner from Life Science managing editor. And this flat earther, who's named Mike Hughes, Mad Mike, he goes by, finally lifted off our spherical, put stuff there. This article is great, by the way, from Life Science. Our spherical planet's surface into the skies aboard a self-made steam-powered rocket on Saturday, March the 24th. Mad Mike believes, of course, mistakenly, like I said, I love this article, that the Earth is flat, and his plan since November 2017 has been to launch himself upwards to 1,800 feet AGL with the goal of making it high enough to prove the planet's flatness, though that's down the line. In a video by Noise TV, which I actually watched this video. Guys, did either of you watch this Noise TV video?
I did not know.
No, I didn't.
No.
Don't. I'm warning you now. Don't. These guys, it's the worst coverage ever. I mean, you take everything that Elon Musk and SpaceX does right. You take that whole experience and then you do everything the opposite. And it is just terrible. I mean, these guys are having fun out there. I get that, but it's not something that you want to watch. So in this video, he uses scene stepping to the top cone of the rocket, and he gets his helmet on, and then they put the hatch over it, and then they launch it, and he goes up, and you can clearly see the steam trail because it's a steam powered rocket. It's not actual rocket fuel. And the truck was plastered with flat earth stuff. He actually repainted the rocket in the colors of Noise TV. And then during the broadcast or the live stream or whatever they did, Noise TV said, yeah, with all that flat earth stuff on there, we were not going to put our logo, because he had painted flat earth all over there. And they're like, no, we don't want to be associated with it. Well, you're covering the launch, for crying out loud. And the language is definitely not suitable for work. So if you're listening to me talk to you about this and you want to go watch that and you have kids around, don't. And if you're at work and it's in a clean environment, like you're in a dentist's office or whatever, do not turn that on. It's incredibly adult language. And it was poor presentation skills. I'm not going to get too much into critiquing the guys because, I mean, they're out there covering a flat earther. We're launching a steam rocket, right, to see if their earth is flat or not. But instead of looking at the camera, most of the time you see their backs and they're looking at the rocket. Like, okay, you guys clearly don't know how to do TV coverage, but that's besides the point. So the launch for Mad Mike comes after two failed attempts. One was canceled after the Bureau of Land Management caught wind of his plans to shoot the rocket from public land and promptly shut him down. We covered that on Gonna Geek last year. And then in another attempt on February 3rd, the Flat Earthers rocket never left the pad. And it was another painful to watch 11-minute live stream event. Again, this Life Science article on this is great. So in Saturday's successful launch, the rocket took off straight in the air, reaching 1,875 feet above the Mojave Desert near Amboy, California, making a hard landing which sheared the nose cone. And that is from Mad Mike, and he posted that off of Facebook. So the cone with Hughes inside fell back to Earth attached to a parachute. He was dropping at 350 miles per hour before pulling the chute, which wasn't enough to slow him down to a reasonable speed. So he pulled a reserve chute before crashing into the desert. And you can see the audio noise. I was watching this. I'm like, wow, that's really fat. Oh my God, he's going to crash. And then I saw the other chute go up. I was like, oh, I hope he slowed down enough. So he did get out. He did walk around, although clearly worse for wear. I mean, he wasn't damaged permanently or anything, but yeah. So, of course, this is a great quote to sum up everything from the article again. Of course, there are plenty of ways to prove that the Earth is a sphere without launching oneself into space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is he didn't go fast enough. I mean,
In the brain, maybe?
yeah. It's just a shame we don't have our resident flat earther Suncast here to talk all about it. So he is the official flat earth correspondent, I believe, and maybe a flat earther. So hashtag flat earther Suncast. Just go ahead and use that hashtag flat earther Suncast, and make sure you tweet him at Suncast with a K, Sunkast. There you go. All right, well, thanks for giving us that update there, SP. And, man, oh, no, I just can't even say anything about it. Let's just go with Chris's news point. What do you got, Chris?
My news point. So I don't know if you guys are aware, Disney has bought a lot of properties in the past few years, and there's been a lot of talk of what they're going to do with those properties. But really, the most important one is what they're going to do with this property. That's right, I had to get a lightsaber prop for this, guys. They're doing more stuff with Star Wars. It's official. If you guys weren't aware, in 2019, it's the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at both Disneyland and Disney World. What this is supposed to be is...
go ahead and interrupt here just so that we can, get in the theme, but legally. Was that legally distinct enough?
Is there something wrong with you, Steven?
Was that legally distinct enough?
Yes,
we'll go with it. We'll say it is.
Yeah.
Continue.
So they're opening Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at both Disneyland and Disney World here in North America. Now, Disney has a plan for a lot of these things lately. How are they doing that? Well, they're laying a lot of the narrative groundwork for these new parks in a kind of quiet manner. The first way they're doing it is there's a Timothy Zahn novel coming up called Thrawn Alliances that's all about fan favorite character Grand Admiral Thrawn, who you might remember from the original expanded universe, who was then brought in to actually being a canon character in the Disney side of things. Well, Tim Zahn's character, Grand Admiral Thrawn, will be going on a mission with the one and only Darth Vader on a mission to a planet called Batuu. And if you've read some of the stories on this new Galaxy's Edge attraction, Batuu is the same name of the planet that is being used as the setting for this Galaxy's Edge attraction. Now, while they haven't revealed too much about the planet, we do know it's a remote trading port and, quote, one of the last stops before wild space, end quote. Now, we don't know a ton, but we know we can find out more by reading the Grand Admiral Thrawn book that Tim Zahn's writing. And it's kind of cool. Kind of cool in a geeky way. I love Star Wars. I love the way they're tying all these things together. They're planting seeds and saying, if you read this book, you'll find out more about this world before it comes into being. It all ties into a larger strategy we've seen them use with things like Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, where everything, the films, the books, the comics, the merchandise, the video games, the real world theme parks, they all come together into a cycle of perpetuating references that lead fans from one Disney branded experience to the next. It's a pretty cool method to start laying all the groundwork for this world that they've already planned out because blueprints are drawn and all of that. It'll be going into place in 2019. Oh yeah, and then right after that, they're doing a whole bunch of what they're calling immersive Marvel expansions, where they're going to have superheroes from the MCU there. It's going to be crazy in Disney, guys. A Star Wars land, a Marvel land, and they're going to find ways to tie it all together with all sorts of different multimedia. And I'm really kind of looking forward to it. It seems like they might be going overboard a little bit, but hey, if you spent $4 billion on Marvel, or I guess that was Lucas, it was $1 billion on Marvel. If you've spent billions of dollars on these properties, you should be finding ways to get people interested. And something as simple as a book that I might not have cared about before, I'm like, I kind of want to know more, because one of the things I want to do in 2019 is go to Galaxy's Edge at Disney World. So I'll be picking up this book, and I'm curious what other stuff they're going to put out there, be it comics, be it TV shows, be it cast interviews or something that begins to build upon the world that you can go experience for yourself at Disney World. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see them doing this sort of stuff because that is something that I don't know. I just been looking forward to one day not living in, but seeing and being immersed in a Star Wars style land. So absolutely awesome.
And I want to get one of my own, build your own lightsaber or something like that. I know I'm a grown adult, but there's a part of me that really geek out to be like, build your lightsaber.
Are you really a grown adult? I mean, we've had this conversation.
Don't make me
before.
lightsaber you over the internet. I'll do it.
You podcast on ATGN. I mean, none of you are adults over there.
I'm offended. Prepare to die.
Okay, come on, buddy. Give me that force projection. That Luke Skywalker force projection. Come on, I'm waiting. Come on.
This is
not
awkward.
working.
It's
not
I'm
working.
telling you, I am surrounded by my friends. You are surrounded by a lightsaber.
You know what
this is not working.
You know what you need for
It's
your
not
lightsaber?
working.
You need a Richard hat. That's what you need. Anyways, GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Lots of great podcasts. I broke Chris. But seriously, though, I'm glad to see them actually moving along with this sort of stuff. And it is exciting to see. And I will say this, that the Marvel idea is actually a little bit more interesting to me than Star Wars. So I know the blasphemy, right?
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was about to call you a blasphemer.
All right, and finally, in our extra news section here, let me just tell you about a thing called Facebook. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Facebook. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Facebook before, or if you've heard of Facebook, but yeah, Facebook is a thing, and it looks like people are sometimes leaving said thing. That's right, if you somehow missed this news, in the wake of a bunch of Facebook data being confirmed to have been manipulated by many places, I know, shocking, there has been people who have decided to exit Facebook. Now, this primarily stems from a couple main things that are pretty much the same thing. It all has to do with the most recent US election, and just how there was definitely data essentially extorted and just people manipulated on Facebook because of the way that the data was just mined and people got a hold of it. Now, here's the thing about that. There's also been a possible revelation that a few years ago, Facebook was collecting, whether or not you agreed to it, on Android, all of your call history information. Now, it's being disputed at this time. Facebook is saying that's not the case, that the data that is in there is something that people would have had to initially agree to upload because of the app settings and to do with messaging and connecting. But then there's people that are saying that, no, it pulled it even without it. In any case, I don't care, because if you at this point in your life didn't realize that Facebook was mining your data, then you're probably also shocked to hear that like everybody else, including Google, is also mining your data. So, you know, the mass exodus of Facebook, it's interesting to me to think about just from the perspective that it's not anything new. And if you're leaving Facebook, but you're still using stuff like Google services, or you have an Android phone, or you're using any other major corporation software that you're not paying for, or website, the odds are your data is being mined. So it's just odd to me to see this sort of movement again, and it's really nothing surprising.
Maybe not to us, but to the average person, it might be. They might need the reminder every once in a while. You know, Bandrew Scott over on the Bandrew Says podcast, he's constantly concerned over the Equifax breach, right? Why aren't people outraged about that?
Yeah.
And why are they outraged about other things? It's just because it's what they use on a day-to-day basis and what they think is important, but what might not actually be important. I think it's a perception of how important it is or how it isn't, and it's knowledge. And I think eventually we're going to have to get to the point where society just lets everything go on the internet, or we change the way that we do business, and there is an expectation for privacy using mobile devices or computers or something like that. I don't know which way it's going to go, and I don't know if you could ever get there where there would be an expectation of privacy, because it's just too much interconnectivity.
Yeah. It's one thing to leave Facebook because, of other reasons, in my opinion, like you just don't like what you're seeing on there. You don't like the constant negativity, or you're surrounded by people who are you're not happy with what you're seeing. Things like that is one thing, but stuff like this just kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit, because if you're also using the Google services, you're also being mined there. So, it is what it is. Everybody's free to do what they want. They can choose to do what they want. I'll never try to talk anybody out of leaving Facebook. I'm not that much of a Facebook advocate, especially since SP is not on there. But just be aware, if you're leaving purely for privacy reasons, you should probably do a full self-assessment of the services that you use, because you should just be aware that other places do this too.
For the record, I did not voluntarily leave Facebook, but it was probably related to data mining, because the Facebook wanted to data mine me, and they couldn't, because they couldn't associate me with a real person.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And finally, in our extra news section, looks like the rumors were right about the wonderful Acer Chromebook tab. Today, Google did unveil a first education tablet made for Chrome OS. They have announced that it's going to be the Acer Chromebook Tab 10, and it is geared towards being used on the education platform. We talked about this a little while ago, quite a bit in depth, about what the benefits would be to having a Chrome OS tablet geared towards the education sector. And this is really interesting to see that this has finally come out. I know that, again, we talked about it before, but I'm glad to see that it's actually happened, because I do think that there's a real opportunity there for the education sector to use Chrome OS, and some people save some money, and also some schools and whatnot who might not usually be able to afford technology for all of their students be able to afford it. So really neat to see, and I can't wait to see if this kicks off a big movement or if it just ends up being a flop.
It's hard to say either way. I actually am pro, let's get some technology into the schoolhouse, but we're at the point where I'm just thinking in terms of long term, right? Like when I was a kid, the Apple IIe's or C's, it wasn't, what was it? I think it was 2Es were in the classrooms, and it was put there by Steve Jobs to get people to use Mac, basically what's now Mac or Apple computers. I think we're going to run into a similar thing where you might get some people that are blinded to other types of technology out there because this is all that they have available in school. It might not be the best for the job markets when you get out there. So it's some things to just keep into consideration.
Yeah, fair point. And we've seen that with Apples for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. And we'll see what happens. Who knows? Maybe it'll just ruin our society forever. It'll ruin it.
Exactly.
I think you've already done that with the Gonna Geek Network.
Oh, well, ATGN was doing that long before our Gonna Geek Network was around.
I'll take the hit.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let SP drone on. All right, SP. Today you're going to talk about drones. Now, before you actually talk about that, I think it's only fair to give everybody the inside track to why SP first got into drones. The reason he first got into drones was his intention was to violate FAA regulations and fly it so high that he could prove that the Earth was flat.
Wouldn't you? I mean, it would be a great thing to do. That is exactly what Suncast should do. He should get a hold of some drones, fly them high enough to prove that the Earth is not flat. So we've discussed drones or remote control aircraft on Gonna Geek before. If you're a longtime listener to the show, you'll remember that we discussed the whole thing this was an evolving thing over the course of like a year about the FAA, or the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States, requiring U.S. citizens that had drones to register, not as a drone pilot, but actually register the drones themselves, the aircraft themselves. Well, for now, for recreational use, it's no longer an issue. But that aside, drone flying is becoming more and more economical. It's becoming accessible basically to anybody that wants to fly. And for me, it's a rediscovery of a hobby that I've long since pushed aside. I've been in remote control aircraft and cars my entire life, basically. So this is something that I used to do as a teenager, and now I'm able to do it as an adult. And that passion never left me, but because of college, it was just hard to do in college. And then after that, get married, have a family, have kids, that sort of thing. So it was a very expensive hobby back then, still kind of is, but it's more affordable now, I think, than it was back there. So you two, Stephen and Chris, do you guys remember the craze around the holidays last few years, or about 5 years ago, where there was all these like mini helicopters, remote control helicopters in the malls and that sort of thing? You guys remember that?
No, because I
do.
just bought a real helicopter and crashed it.
That's true.
Oh,
Steven has that podcasting money. He's a podcasting billionaire and just flies around in helicopters everywhere. He makes it rain with dollar coins, not bills, because he's got that much cash. But in all seriousness, yes, I do remember that craze. I kind of wanted to buy one of those mini helicopters just to fly around the house and maybe terrorize my cat a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. They were largely indoor. They weren't really meant for the outdoors. They were prone, because we had a couple in the house too. They were prone to reliability and accidents, because as soon as you run into something, something's going to break, because it's just small plastic parts. And as soon as it's going around really quick and it hits something, you're going to break part of that. And my son and daughter both had one around the house, and I had to repair them. And so it was a process of getting the parts to repair them from the company and then actually performing the repairs. So by like the summertime, but they were just relegated to display storage on a shelf because I just couldn't keep them running, right? But they were fun, they were nifty, and they were just awesome to have around. This awesome little technology that you could fly around the house, mostly on analog controllers, like the two-stick controllers sort of stuff. So a few years though, micro quadcopter, and what a quadcopter is, it's got 4 turboprop blades, or 4 electric motor blades that are 2 of them are running in countersync to the other 2, but there's 4 blades. So it's a lot more stable than just a helicopter, because that helicopter with electric motors, the helicopter was working really hard to keep stable. Quadcopters can be a lot more stable. So my son, 2 years ago for Christmas, so it would have been Christmas 2015, he was looking everywhere for a gift for me, really. And he's like, well, don't tell me what you want, but what do you want? And I'm like, well, I want this, this, and this. And he's like, yeah, I don't have enough money for that. Yeah, I know. So go in with your sisters and get me one of the bigger things, being selfish and everything. And he was ingenious. He went to Brookstone and he got me this Batwing quadcopter, which was really cool.
Nice.
It's just, a small micro drone, right? So it was geeky because he knew I podcasted on Starleaf Tribune. So it was a Batcopter, but it was also just something that I could fly around the house. And I don't have the remote just right next to me, but it had a little remote control. Now, unfortunately, these props are I just put the battery in so the video users can see the lights that are flashing. But these props are just increasingly just fragile, and they bump into anything and they will shear off. And I have been trying to get replacement props for a while. I actually ordered some and they came in, and unfortunately the new version of the Batwing copter, first of all, the actual props are smaller than the props that are on here, which I'm like, okay, maybe I can just replace all 4 of them and it will go. But unfortunately, the shafts on this version of the Batwing are just too big and I can't put these props on. So unfortunately, unless I find some original Batwing props, that is now relegated to not being able to be flown because I only have 3 propellers on it. And you can get that at, I believe, Target right now and maybe Amazon. So you can get a version of this probably with the size of prop. And it is just fun. It's got a camera in it and a little
Really?
SD card.
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
it does. It's got a little camera in it. And I wanted to fly it around and take some videos specifically for this podcast, but I couldn't because I didn't have the propeller. So that is...
I've seen that exact one at Best Buy, but I think it was still like $70 on clearance. And I was like, yeah, nah, not quite yet. You get down to like the 30, 40 range, I might think about it.
Go check online right now, Chris. You can get them for $27.
I'm going right now.
Sold.
Yeah, there you go. So it's awesome. So this was a Brookstone, and it has an indoor capability for sure, but also it's powerful enough that in very extremely calm days or light wind, you can fly it outside too, especially with the lights at night. It was awesome, and it was fun to have. Now, micro quadcopters are still a thing. A lot of hobbyists actually build their own because you can get all these components on your own and make your own little micro quadcopter. So that's a very hobbyist thing to do, and all props to those guys. I really appreciate what they do. It's affordable.
All props.
There you go.
See
Yeah,
what
you caught
did
that, huh? Yeah. They're hobbyists. They know what they're doing. They just like your brother when he actually created your lighted mic flag. You know, they're putting specific electronics in there for it, and it's cool. And these are very stable and controllable if you don't have a lot of wind. And they're cheap enough that if you do get them outside and the wind takes them, which does happen, by the way, the wind will take these away if you get it in a strong gust. And if you lose it, no big deal. You can buy another one. Now, it'll hurt a little bit if you actually created it yourself and you painstakingly built it, but it's very affordable. All right. So you got this micro drone era, and you've got the CES, which is the Consumer Electronic show, right? So 6 years ago in 2012, the big outdoor quadcopters really started to come on the market. And one that came on the market was called an AR Parrot 2.0, which I happen to have one right here. Ooh. This thing, in comparison to that Batwing, is huge. It's actually the biggest drone that I own. And it's also probably not the most stable drone that I own. So these props are huge. And
So
you have an indoor
question for you, SP. Do you have the batteries in while you're holding the props up by your face?
No, the battery is not in here right now.
Perfect. That's a smart safety tip here on the Gunny Geek Show. Don't put a drone near your face with batteries in it.
That's right. So it's got a 720 forward-facing camera. It's also got an SD, I believe it's 480 downward-facing camera, so you can switch between the two. And this is before you could gimbal cameras back and forth. This is 2012. This is 6 years ago. And the battery lasts about 10 minutes, and this thing can go. It's just amazing how fast and how agile this thing. It could do flips. It could do loop-de-loops. It could do all sorts of great things. Now, it's got some limitations. What are the limitations? It's only controllable via a mobile device app. So your range is limited to the Wi-Fi range of your phone, which they say is supposed to be like 165 feet. It's like 80 to 100 feet, and that's all you really get. The other thing is it's not very stable. I mean, it's very acrobatic, but it's not if you just want to hover it, it's not stable at all, especially in wind. It can't handle wind very well. So it's going all over the place. So I've flown this about, 7-8 times. And while I'm flying this in the wind, sometimes the wind has taken it. Now, the wind has taken it into trees. It's taken it into swing sets. It's taken it into power lines, which is a big no-no, by the way. If you get caught damaging power lines with a drone, that's a big fine to the power company and probably to the law too. So don't fly near power lines. And that wasn't intentional, by the way. I was far away from the power lines and the wind literally took it into the power line. It was very scary when that was happening. So I'm probably not going to be flying that too much anymore because I've moved on to more stable aircraft. But that was a great starter. And why was it a great starter? Because I got it refurbished for $40. This is an incredible machine. As far as the acrobatics on it and the performance, $40 is amazing. And that's why I was like, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to see what these drones are all about. these micro drone or these small consumer drones.
Yeah, for $40, that's if it crashes and breaks, you're out $40. Whoop-de-doo, you had some fun with it, and you're good to go.
Or
that's awesome.
If it hits the power lines.
Yeah, right.
Well, that doesn't pay for the power line fine, but you can be like, I don't know whose that is. This must be some stupid kid.
So they're very maintainable too, because because it bopped into some trees, I had to go ahead and repair some shafts, some prop shafts on it, and it was easy to do, but it was something that I had to do. And then the wind took it one day, and it was really flying. It was going really, really high. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go out of Wi-Fi range. And there's this emergency stop button on the app, and I pressed that, and it fell like, I don't know, 50 feet, and it fell on grass, but it was still too much for that cross strut to take, and it broke in half. So I was like, crap. But it was only $40. So not only did I order the repair piece for the cross brace, but I was like, oh, let's see if there's any others out there. And I actually ordered one for $20. It was great. So I got it. This is the replacement. It's not the original. This is the replacement that I'm holding in my hand right now. And it was $20, and it works just fine.
So that one doesn't have like a return home feature or something if it goes out of range? Because I know like some of the DJIs do and stuff like that.
I was going to get there. Yeah.
Okay.
It does not it's not GPS enabled, so it does not have the return home, and it does not have programmability. And also you can't use it with a controller. Like I said, it's only mobile based. So it's very limited. So if I got these, if I was you and I bought one of these because you're hearing me talk about it and it's great and everything, go find an open field, like a huge soccer complex, a football stadium, something that is a lot of open space, and fly it on a really calm day. You will have a lot of fun. But yeah, and indoor flying, I've found that the currents inside, because it will create its own air currents, and that will cause the thing to move around too. So it's not very stable indoor. It's in a house. Now, if you're in a big warehouse or a hangar, you should be fine. But in your house, it's not going to be fine. So yeah, it was great. It was a sweetheart of a deal, and I'm glad I did it. So I was like, I was down. So I flew it for like 3 days. I flew it six, 7 times for 3 days, and then I needed to order some repair parts. And about that time, another deal came up for the Parrot Bebop 2. And I did some research, and I was like, that's not bad. It's got a 1080 camera. It's supposed to be very programmable. It has GPS enabling on it. The only detriment is it doesn't have a 4K camera like the Mavic Pro and the Phantoms do. But hey, I'm just doing this to have fun. I got it off of Woot on a sellout, so you can't get it there anymore. But I got it on Woot on sellout for $108. I had a $50 off coupon from another thing that had gone bad. So I got it for $130. And then eventually, because I suspected there was something else wrong with it, there isn't. I sent them a note and they said, okay, we'll give you another $40 off. So I got this thing for $90. And this thing, performance-wise, the flight time is very equivalent to the Mavic Pro. The only detriment to this thing is it might not be as stable. I mean, it's close, but like a Mavic Pro, you can probably fly in 25-mile-an-hour wind. This thing, 20-mile-an-hour wind is probably what you can get. And it's GPS, and it's only got the 1080 camera versus a 4K, but everything else for a learner, for $180, which is what I got it for, and then you take all that off for $90, but this was a steal. Oh, so glad. Now, you can control this from the app. It's a different app than the one that the Parrot 2.0, but it's the one that they all use, all Parrot's drones use now. And you can also control it with the Sky Controller. And there's the Sky Controller and the Sky Controller too, but we'll get to that. So while the Parrot 2.0 was a wild child, this thing was like stable as all heck. I mean, I could just actually have it in the air and just pan around, and you can pan the camera around and tilt it up and down, and you can fly the drone. You can program the drone to go in a different path, so you're only looking at the camera, and you do it through the app. You're seeing what the camera sees. Now, you can fly it without a mobile device, but I really recommend that you fly it with a device. The range with the controller is like 2 kilometers.
Wow.
Wow.
It's incredible. Now, it has to be within line of sight, and you shouldn't be around any electromagnetic contamination. but it's just awesome. So I've flown it around my house. I took it around to some parks. I actually programmed it and flew it programmed. This thing is, I can't wait to get this out again. I flew it last on Friday, and the weather just has not been good to fly it since Friday, and I've wanted to take it out every day. In the morning, I will go in my back patio, and I will just lift off for like 20 minutes and just have fun. It's fun to me, like I said, and a grandmother could fly this. It's very easily controllable.
I gotta say, by the way, so SP's been sending me a bunch of these videos because I've been wanting a drone forever, so I'm living vicariously through him. And the first one that he sent me was the Parrot, and I was very, very surprised and impressed. But the thing that just stood out, and if you've at all been watching the video side of things, which if you're not, you can find that at geeks.link/233, we'll take you over there. The difference in stability from a video perspective is night and day between the two. It is amazing how smooth that the Bebop 2 is. Any of the video that you've been seeing me put up on screen, if you're watching, is not stabilized by us by any means. No, that's what he got out of the box.
Yeah, I do no post-processing. I basically throw the video up on a private YouTube link and maybe do some voiceover to describe what I'm doing. And that's how Steven's been living vicariously. I wouldn't be doing that unless Steven has been asking me to do it for him. So that's why I've been doing it. So it can, like I said, fly in some decent wind, like 20-mile-an-hour wind. That's pretty good. Now, I probably limited it to 10 to 15 mile an hour because I don't want to lose it. And if there's a strong gust above 25 miles an hour, I don't know what's going to happen. It does have that GPS. Chris, you were talking about that GPS. It does have that GPS. It does have the return to home feature, which I have used.
That's awesome.
And it is awesome because it literally comes back to the same point it took off from. It is just incredible. It will just all of a sudden decide, I need to go back to home. And it does. Like if you can set the program for how long you want like the connectivity to suffer. Like if you lose Wi-Fi connection for 3 seconds, 15 seconds, 2 minutes, it will automatically return home. And it's just cool the way it does that. And also it allows for programmable flights like I was talking about before. So you could send it out around a soccer field, like a big soccer tournament. And you got a big soccer stadium that's got, or soccer fields, it's got like 50 fields. And you just want to see all the people, or big festivals or whatever. Yeah, you can program it around and just, you can be very safe, make sure it's avoiding obstacles, make sure it's within line of sight, and just worry about the camera at that point in time. So it's awesome. I've flown that 10 times, and 10 might not seem like a lot of flights to you, but it really is when you're talking about each flight is 20 to 25 minutes.
So
it's exhilarating.
How long does it take for the battery to charge up on that thing so that you can do another flight again? Or do you just have multiple batteries so you can rotate it out?
I was going to get there. You're a great lead-in man there, but I was going to get there eventually. So the battery, the original, I thought something was wrong with the drone or the charger or whatever, because I charged the battery for like 3 days and nothing happened. I unplugged the charger, plugged it back in, and charged the battery up, and it was charged like within an hour. Now they say it could take up to 2.5 hours, and there's this whole thing about balanced charging specifically for the batteries of the Parrot Bebop 2 and the Bebop. But this has been great so far. I did order a second battery just because if I'm out and about and if I see something, I'll want to go back up later and do another run around whatever point of interest that I have. And this summer I'll be doing a lot. I'll be trying to get out and doing a lot of nature photography. So this is my connection with nature. You know, get on the bike trail, see a cool thing, take the drone up, get some cool photography, and then come back in. And that's very reminiscent of a lot of the YouTube live aboard sailing or cruising YouTube channels that I'm watching. They all have these drones and they always get these incredible shots. And if you have the advantage, go ahead and do that with these drones. So a negative to the Bebop 2 versus the Mavic or the DJI drones, it does not have collision avoidance. So this is not a drone that you want to send out on a pre-programmed path that you don't know what it's going to be running into, because it literally could run into power lines, cell towers.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So you don't want to do any of that. You really don't.
I'll just program my drone. Oh, wait, there's a big building in the path. Oh, no.
Yeah, if you fly it into a window or something like that, you could be culpable for it. Yeah. In that, remember, way back when you were supposed to register your drones, this was part of it, so they could backtrack it to you and that they could find out who was violating airspace. The Bebop 2 has a video mode, which is very controllable, and a sport mode. So if you're somebody you're an enthusiast and you want to do flips and you want to race and stuff like that, yes, you can do that with the Bebop 2. You just throw on sport mode versus video mode. And it's one of my best purchases. I'm glad I did that because I know what I have to look forward to when I upgrade eventually to the deals that will be coming. I'm pretty sure on the DJI, like Mavic Pro and Phantom 4. I know the Phantom 3s have already been on sale, but the Phantom 4 Pros haven't yet. All right, how am I controlling this? I'm controlling it via a Sky Controller 2. It's a Parrot Sky Controller 2. It's actually got a VR headset, which I will never use, but it is there. I mean, you can put the phone in the mask and you can control the drone like that. That's just not me. That would give me instant vertigo.
I've heard that it's really hard to use them.
I've heard the same.
Yeah, the VR headsets are, but I highly advocate for the controller. I got this for $99 at B&H Photo on sale. I was like, that's a no-brainer. I'm going to buy this because these things normally go for at least $150 to $250. So I bought it, and then it's got a little stand on top that I can put my iPad mini, which I can run the app on and make sure I can control the drone that way. You don't have to run it through the app. You can control it directly, just analog from the controller. But because I'm doing the full motion video on it, I want to have that app available. But it has a return to home button on it. So if you lose connectivity, you can just start to hit it really fast so that it can definitely come back to you and you don't have to worry about it just staying out there, maybe running out of battery before it decides to come back on its own. But it's very ergonomic. It's basically, an Xbox controller in terms of functionality. I do like the sticks to control it versus having to touch on my screen to control it. It's just a much finer level of control. So I'm so glad I got this. Yes, it was $100, but
totally
controllers are hundreds of dollars. I've known this my entire life in RC, and so this was a no-brainer. And you could, if you take a look at the Sky Controller 2, it's the front face, it's all antenna, and that's how it's getting its range up to 2 kilometers on it. So this controller makes the Bebop 2 even more desirable to me, and I'm glad I've got that.
That's really cool. I've got a coworker who's got a DJI, and he calls his return to home button his expletive button because Joe knows he's screwed up and has to push it. So
that's what it is.
But
now,
how does that work though? Like, if there's no connectivity, how is the button even effective?
It loses the full motion video, but it's still connected a little bit on the actual.
Gotcha. I understand now. Okay.
And remember what I said, if you set a timer, I don't have connectivity for 15 seconds, then it will automatically come back home. And you can take control of it again once you actually have that connection. You can retake control. It doesn't have to come all the way back.
Right.
So another thing that happened as I'm looking on the slick deals at drones, because I'm like, eventually I'm going to have a Mavic Pro and I'm going to have a Phantom. I'm definitely going to do that. All of a sudden, this deal on the original Bebop, it's not Bebop 1, it's just called the Bebop, came up for $80, and I had a 20% off coupon. I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I'm going to try that out for that much.
SP, can I share the wise words of my grandfather with you?
Yeah.
You'll go broke saving money that way.
It's not necessarily that. It's a capable. I was shocked once I actually got this. It's the same camera as the Bebop 2. It has only about half the battery life, so 11-minute flight time, but it has GPS, and so you can do all the same things that you can do with the Bebop 2. Cool. It's just limited in the distance and the time, and it's not as controllable in the wind, but it's still capable of going up. Like I said, I would take my Bebop 2 in about 15-mile-an-hour winds. 10-mile-an-hour winds is about the extent that I would take the Bebop in. But like I said, same camera, same everything. And for $80 or less than that on a refurbished one, if you are looking into a drone and you want to know what the big boy drones do and you don't have a lot of money, go look for a Bebop refurbished. It's going to be the most awesome thing that you did. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. You're going to learn everything that the big boys do. And it's it's just going to be fun. And if you can get a controller for cheaper or affordable, that's great. If not, the Wi-Fi app will do. But yes, look for these Bebops. Like if I was starting over again, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have got the Parrot 2. I would have just gotten the Bebop, but I didn't know. So now I know, and this is the way I would have gone. Like I said, everybody's looking at the Spark, the Mavic Pro, the Phantoms. I get that, but this is affordable. I got all these drones and the controller for less than $300. And that's less than what you would pay for a Spark. And it's less than half of what you would pay for a Mavic. And it's less than a third of what you would pay for a Phantom. So if you just want to go out and have fun, this is what you do. And it's just been a fun experience. I'm so glad that I've rekindled this love in my life for remote control, for flying, and for the full motion video of photography. I've also had an affinity to photography in my past. Now, I haven't had a lot of time and money to spend on it, but now that you can do amazing stuff with the 4K cameras on like the Mavics and the Phantoms, I am so looking forward to eventually when I get there. But I want to get into how exactly I want to use these two. And portability is also an issue. If I go on my bike and I take these, I'm at least going to have to get a backpack to take them out. So yeah, lots of stuff. We mentioned before extra batteries. Make sure that you're looking into extra batteries. I know some people do up to 5, but you also have to make sure you're capable of charging that much too. So I'd say at least 2. So if it doesn't come with 2, at least buy 1 more battery, or 4 or 5 up to that. Definitely invest in some sort of protective mobile bag that you can take it with. Waterproof might be good too. Like if I'm on a bike, I want to make sure that rain doesn't get into it. So make sure that that case is waterproof. Find a local drone flying group. Yeah, some Facebook groups are out there on that. Some have online websites where they actually depict where are good areas to go and fly. Matter of fact, I connected with a local group that likes to fly, and it turns out the same place that I went to fly on the Bebop 2 was the same place that they fly their Mavics and their Phantoms. I just haven't been there at the same time of them. So I'm looking forward to meeting up with them, and they're like, cool, I haven't ever flown a Bebop 2. I would love to see one in operation. I'm like, sure, I mean, I don't care, whatever. And then make sure you understand the laws of operation in your area of the world, because they differ all over the world. Make sure you understand. Okay, first of all, restricted airspace, stay the heck out, because that's an easy way to lose your drone and to maybe end up in jail, and definitely with a fine. So make sure that you stay away from restricted airspace. Here in the United States, you can't fly above 400 feet AGL, which is above ground level. Make sure that you're keeping the aircraft in line of sight at all times. We'll get to that in a second. Don't fly over unprotected people or moving vehicles. So that's I don't know how that really translates to how the drones are used in crowds, but you're basically not trying to be offensive with them. You're supposed to stay 25 feet away from individuals or vulnerable property. You must not photograph or conduct surveillance on individuals who have the expectation of privacy without their permission. And don't fly in adverse weather conditions that could affect visibility. So if it's foggy, you can't go up because there might be another aircraft up there like a Cessna 172 that might smack into you, and you can cause all sorts of problems that way. You can't fly underneath the influence, so no drugs or alcohol. And believe it or not, I mentioned restricted airspace before. National parks are restricted airspace, so you cannot fly your drones above this majestic scenery in the national parks of the United States. Ugh. Now, to get back to the line of sight issue, there's some controversy over that because these drones are so small. You saw me hold them up in my hand here on camera. You get 500 meters out, you're not going to see them. They're that small. So I'm not sure what eyesight is, especially in this era of full motion video where you can clearly still tell where the thing is. So the biggest threat is to lose connectivity. So if you are in a crowded electromagnetic airspace and you send your drone out for 2 miles on a pre-programmed flight, odds are you're going to lose connectivity with that. probably shouldn't do that if you know you're going to lose cognitivity, because that's beyond your eyesight. And so these laws were made in an era where the technology wasn't invented yet that we're using today. And I went to a Mavic Pro forum, and that specific question was asked, and they're all like, yeah, I guarantee you everybody here has been in violation of that eyesight, because those Mavic Pros they have such a small profile and they go out so far that you're just going to lose sight of them, and you're not going to be able to tell where they're, because their range is 7,000 meters. That's a lot of time, a lot of space of that Mavic Pro. So in the meantime, stand by for future things. In the future, I will be doing more Bebop and Bebop 2 flights this summer. That's going to be fun. I'm going to be looking for deals on the Mavic Pro and the Phantom 4. The Spark just came out, so it's probably not going to be great deals. Besides, I've done a comparison in the technological capabilities, and for me, I would like the Mavic Pro versus the Spark. But I know a lot of people out there want to start, and the Spark is a great place to start too. But yeah, it's been a fun ride so far, and I'm glad to have taken it, and I can't wait for more this summer.
I gotta say, I really love your videos, and I do think that I'm guessing some of them you wouldn't want to post just for privacy reasons, but I think some of them, though, you should really get in the habit of posting them. They're quite fun for me to live through you, and I think you've done quite a good job in the short time that you've owned drones. I think it's been, 3 weeks now? And
just March, yeah, by the time I started flying. Yeah,
from what I've seen, yeah, I totally agree with what you said. Just stick with the Bebops, either of them. My personal note that I saw while looking at your videos is that it's still night and day difference between the Bebop and the Bebop 2. The Bebop 2, like the panning and stuff, is way smoother, especially when it's panning down. But it you know, if you get a deal like SP's got, how can you say no to that, especially if you're learning? And keep in mind, I don't know if he clearly said it. It was like day 1, maybe. No, it was day 2 that he broke his the Parrot AR.
Yeah, Parrot
right?
2.0.
Parrot 2.0. That was it. It was day 2 that he did it, which is a great example of why starting cheap might be a good way to go.
It's a wild child. It's a crazy lady to fly, that particular one. So there was a reason why I broke it, versus flying the Bebop 2 was a lot easier to control. And so I could stay away from those sorts of obstacles a lot easier, especially on video mode versus sport mode. So in retrospect, if you want to jump in on the high end, go for it. Just keep it in video mode and be very careful about how you fly it.
And also, by the way, SP mentioned making sure that your laws or follow the laws that are applicable to your specific area. I'd like to know, if anybody knows this, what is the most like free area that you can fly them? Like, what country has the least amount of
international oceans?
Is that all right? So there you go. I bet you could hook us up with that. But anyways, lots of fun to watch these videos. And if you didn't watch the video side of things, this might be an episode you might want to go back and check out again. It's geeks.link/233 will take you over this episode. While SP was talking, there was photos, there was videos, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the screen. And I gotta say, I saw some power lines in there, SP. I saw some power lines, but you were well above the power lines. I saw that.
Yeah, well above, and it's hard to judge if you're not familiar with heights and altitude. It's hard to judge how tall things really are. Like those big mega power lines that run between cities. Yeah, I'll tell you, some of them are 400 feet tall, so don't think you can fly over them.
Crazy. Well, there you go. If you got any questions about drones, or you are a drone flyer yourself and you want to get in touch with SP, you can always reach him at Twitter at Stargate Pioneer is where you can find him, or just go ahead on over to GonnaGeek.com and comment on the latest episode there. We would love to hear what your drone experience has been, especially if it ended up with your arrest. That's the story that we'd like to hear.
I've been arrested before. I think we've told the story too on this podcast.
Probably. But while you are over on GonnaGeek.com, you should check out all of the other awesome podcasts on the Gonna Geek Network, including Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., where in episode number 233 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., titled Principia, is that how you say it? Principia. The
Principia.
Principia. The Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. director SP Agent Lauren and consultant Michelle discuss the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5, 13th episode, Principia. They also run down other Marvel news, so you check that out at GonnaGeek.com or GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Talking about drones, there's a flying boat, a flying ship in that episode, so go check that episode out.
Pretty good episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've been enjoying it, except my poor Fitzy. Poor Fitzy, but we'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
Chris, we have alluded to ATGN a couple of times on this episode. What is happening in the upcoming week on ATGN?
In the upcoming week? That would be hard for me to know, considering I don't put the show notes together until Saturday night, oftentimes.
Well, if you do want to check out ATGN, you can find that on GonnaGeekNetwork.com, but I will warn you, it is very, very, very not safe for work.
Oh,
yes.
No, especially with Willie. No.
Or one John Bubb, aka Suncast, who guest hosts and tries to be the new Willie and does an adequate job of making me get flustered. So kudos to you, John, for getting me all flustered.
That's what I was going to say is Willie was away this past week, and Suncast can definitely give Willie a run for his money, for sure.
Well, he does hang out with Andrew.
Well, do you have anything that you want to plug or promote?
Go check out the Starling Tribune. That's one of the other podcasts I do that is much safer for work, as SP, Michelle, and myself run through the latest episodes of Arrow and sometimes Legends of Tomorrow.
SP, anything you want to plug or promote?
It's Starling Tribune. We are going to be podcasting this next weekend on Arrow. Don't know exactly when we're going to be recording because it's that special holiday weekend, but that's going to be fun. However, if you are a podcaster or are interested in podcasting space, Stephen, you and I did an episode recently, A Better Podcasting, about how to pay attention to your audience. So if you want to know more about how to interact with your audience, go check that episode out. That is Better Podcasting episode number 123.
And you can also find out a brand new podcast service, which we all know is going to fail. But that is going to take us to the end of episode 233 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I'm Stephen John Drew saying I'm super, super terrific. My name's not Richard, and I don't have a hat.
I'm Chris Farrell, and I'm happy I got some pixel buddies now.
I'm SP, and I'm surrounded by my friends.
Yeah, you got those drones? I got a fidget spinner. Take that! It's gonna fly away! Bye!
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of The Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.